Hi, welcome to Donegal Dad. I'm Mark. This week we're going to be having a look at some old Hornby stuff I was given. There's an engine in here we're going to look at, see if we can get it working and service it as need be. As always, leave your comments and questions down below. Peter Baker requested that I reinstate my old intro of the rail cars in Donegal town, so I'm going to do that for this video for you, Peter. If you have any suggestions on intros I could do for my videos, please leave them in the comments down below. So here's the stuff we're going to have a look at. This was all given to me by my daughter's boyfriend's father, Alan. So thanks very much, Alan, for sending them down to me. They were discovered in an attic he was clearing out. I've looked them up and they seem to date from 1977. So let's have a look at them individually now and see what they're like. So we're going to start off with this Shell tanker. It's got a price on it of £1.05. Now back in 1977, the average UK wage was £68.70 a week, and in Ireland it was £79.06 a week. So in the UK that was an annual salary of 3,572 and 40 pence, and in Ireland that would have been an average yearly wage of 4,111 and 12 pence. So here we have a little wagon, the usual sort of plastic wheels, made in England. So this would have been made in Hornby's factory in Margate in Kent. It's usual for its time period, riveted on couplings, plastic wheels, some detail on it, but for its time, quite a nice little wagon. And it runs quite smoothly actually, for something that's over 40 years old. And then we have Kellogg's. Now a lot of people probably would have had one of these wagons if they bought a train set. I know I certainly probably have one from a train set I bought when I was younger. And this is 90 pence. Here we are, just printed on Kellogg's. Again, same sort of chassis, plastic moulding, riveted on couplings, plastic wheels. But again, it runs quite nicely. Now, adjusting for inflation, £1 UK would be equivalent of £5.66 in today's money, or in Ireland, £1 as it would have been back in 77 is the equivalent of about €5.36 now. Here we have a flat wagon. Again, same, they all have a similar sort of chassis on them. In fact, it's identical chassis, just a different wagon on top. So we have a flat wagon here carrying some wheels. And again, that runs quite nicely. So it's got the bigger D-style couplings on it that were around at the time. And here we have a Southern Rail sheet wagon for 90 pence. So when you adjust it for inflation, I mean, this sort of wagon now from the sort of railroad range would be anything from £10 to £15. So for 90 pence, the equivalent of that today is about a fiver sterling, about the same in euros. So again, this has got a different chassis on it, Again, plastic wheels, metal coupling. But it's quite, all these vehicles are quite adequate if you have them on a layout going around. Not highly detailed or anything, but for the time they were built, they're very, very good. And here we have the platform shelter. No price on this, but I think every layout has probably got one of these. So a bit of platform. You can see some of the transfers have been put on it, so it has been used. This has probably given someone a few years of fun. Now we've got some ramp sections to go with it, and a straight section. I know I certainly had a lot of fun with these when I was younger. We also have in there a Merit 00 gauge and HO gauge station accessories. So made in England. So this has got level signs and mile posts in it, 6 pieces. But you can see it's got station signs, so this probably came with the halt. And there's the level indicators. Got a little bench. They would be clips, probably for the signals we've got as well. And so there's the mile posts and level indicators. Let's see if that will focus. Like even now, these would be quite nice to have on the railway. Trim off some of the flashing, cut off the bottom and just drill a hole and insert it into your layout. Give it a bit of weathering, some frame dirt or something like that, just to take the shine off it. I'll put those in there for now. And we've got some signals. So that is R139 junction signal set. So we've got a distance signal and a home signal. Again, I don't think these have really changed for years in the Hornby collection. That one's missing its wire. That's something that can be fixed. Again, they would look great on any layout. You can add to them a bit of weathering on them, take the shine off them, the plasticky look off them, and they look great. And then in this box we have a loco. Class 13 060 shunter. So I'm going to put this on a bit of track in a minute and see if it runs, and take it apart and give it a little bit of a service and a clean, see if we can get it going. Right, this has got a separately fitted ladder on it. Again, the same sort of basic blown plastic detail you've got around that time, but it's pretty intact. No sprung buffers on these, but we'll see if we can get that going in a minute. And I think there was a price on this. And this was a whole £5.25. So that would have been about somewhere between 25 and 30 pounds in today's money. So I think model railway stuff has increased. And of course we got the usual Hornby buffer, which hasn't changed in years. So let's pull that track forward, hook up the power, and see if we can get this engine going. Right, sat on my DCC rolling road. I've got one of my older transformers out for DC operation. And we'll apply some power now and see what happens. Oh, hear the motor trying to do something. No, it did try to do something, but turn it the other way. Nope, nothing. So we'll take it apart, strip it down and have a look at it. So the top just pops off. It's actually quite clean. And it's got this little lever inside that is connected to the coupling. I've never actually seen that before. So everything looks clean, the brushes look clean. I can't see any oil on it, it is very dry, so I'll oil it up. The wheels are relatively clean, but I'll give them a clean anyway. There's a bit of crud on them. So you can see from this here how a DC motor works. So we can see there we got pickups on the wheels there. So the electricity will come in through the rail, through these wheels here, come up through this brown wire here, and then it looks like it's going into a capacitor. Let's see where that's connected. Yep, into a capacitor, which then this red wire then connects to the brush on this side. And you can see that piece of wire there is insulated on that brush. So obviously the rest of the power is then returned through that side of the motor, down through the frame, and down out through these wheels here. So the frame itself is acting as the ground. Similar to your car, where the frame of the car acts as the ground, and you only have live wires usually running through a car. So electricity would come up through here, through this wire, onto the brush, onto the commutator, which then would magnetize that coil, which would repel against this permanent magnet here, causing it to spin, by which time the next coil would then be connected. That would magnetize, causing it to spin, repelled from the magnet there. So I'm just going to take the power off the track. And hook it directly onto the brushes. Carefully watching that they don't touch each other or hit the ground and short out. And we'll apply some power and see what happens. Oh, there's a bit of movement. I can feel it trying to do something. So what I'm going to do now is strip it down a bit further, check the magnet, see, make sure it's got some magnetism in it, and give everything an oil and put it back together. You can see I've partially stripped it down. I've taken the motor off, and I can see that spins quite freely. I've taken the brushes off. There's a little bit of corrosion on one of the brushes arms. You can see that green build up. That wouldn't help the conducting of electricity, so I'll clean all that up. I'll clean the commutator, drop a little bit of oil in. And remember, if you can see oil, you've probably got too much on there. So I'll do that. Taking the magnet out. Now this one common thing is they can become demagnetized over time and the motor won't work as efficiently. So if you want to remagnetize it, you need to get a strong earth type magnet. You can get them on eBay. They're pretty cheap. But what you need to do is, if you have a compass, you need to line the magnet up. Let's get that in frame a bit better. So you know which is the south and north pole of the magnet. You can see there it's pulling the black. If I flip the magnet over, you can see it's pulling the north. So if it's the north has been pulled to it, we know that that is the south pole of the magnet. and likewise that's the north pole of the magnet. Here I have a rare earth magnet. This has actually come out of an old hard drive that I broke up to get the magnet out. These are very, very strong magnets. So to remagnetize the magnet, you simply put them together like that for a couple of seconds. Pull it apart like that. And do it with the other pole. And pull it apart. And then the way a magnet works is the atoms of iron in there are all lined up in the same direction, and over time the magnetism decreases because they all go out of alignment, but when you introduce another magnet into it, it pulls them all back into line again and remagnetizes it. So now we can pop that back in here, and I'll give it a clean up and put it back together and see if it runs. So we're cleaning it. I've got some IPA. I'm using the 99.9 strength IPA. You want to use that because it means there's very, very little water in it. If you use something like 70%, that is sort of 30% water, and you don't want to leave that there because the water will just cause further corrosion. So if you use the 99, it all evaporates and doesn't cause any further corrosion. So I'm just cleaning up the commutator there, just being careful that any fluff off the cotton wool bud doesn't transfer onto it. And just a couple of gentle rubs just to get the carbon deposits built up off it. You're also making sure that the gaps, you can see that, the gaps in between, get that to focus. You see how there's gaps there? You want to make sure those are clear and there's no carbon falling in there or bits of metal, anything that would cause it to short out, because that will also stop the motor from spinning. So I'll carry on cleaning that. And also with the connections there, you can see that green tarnish in there. We'll just clean that up. You can use a small file to get the more stubborn stuff off, or a little bit of sandpaper. Let's get most of it off there. Let's clean that up. You have to be careful not to get the actual brushes themselves wet, because that can cause them just to fall apart. So if you do get any IPA on them, just leave them to dry before you reassemble them. You can see on there is quite a depth of brush left, so these don't need replacing. So I'm going to put all this, finish cleaning it, put it all back together, and then we'll see if we can get it working. It's assembled now, back on the track, and we're going to apply some power. I can hear it buzzing, and it still doesn't want to move. So the next step is to take the bottom cover off, remove the wheels, check all the cogs and everything in there, give it a bit of an oil and a grease up, and clean the wheels at the same time. So let's strip that down now. As you can see, I've stripped it down again. I've taken the motor off. I removed the bottom cover, which holds the contacts that go against the wheels. Now these were all really dirty, so I've cleaned them up again with some IPA. I've cleaned the wheels, and it's also important to clean the back of the wheels where the contacts sit against the wheel to pick up the current. Now this was actually quite stiff. A lot of the grease that was in here had dried and gone hard. So again, I cleaned that out. The cotton wool bud, IPA, give it a good clean out, put a drop of oil in there, and then just simply ran it up and down a few times. And you can see now it's running quite freely. And then went back in with a dry bud, just to soak up some of the excess oil. Again, being careful that none of the cotton wool gets jammed in the mechanism. So hopefully that's now had a good surface. It's all clean. The motor is working. I've run that for about 5 minutes in each direction and it's spinning freely. I've oiled up the points in there and in there on the bearing surfaces. So what I'm going to do now is put it back together, see if it works, let it run for half an hour in each direction just to bed it all in, and we'll see how it goes. So the moment of truth. It's back on the rolling road, it's all together. Let's apply some power and see what happens. Well, there was a little spin there. There we go. So I'm going to leave that running there now for about 15 minutes in that direction. Then I'll change the direction and let it run in the other for about another 15 minutes. So in summary, what have I done? I've taken the motor off, I've cleaned all the contacts, I've given a drop of oil into where the moving parts and the bearings are, I've taken the bottom off, I've cleaned the wheels, I've cleaned where the contacts touch the wheels, I've taken out the old grease, cleaned them, put in some new oil, and now it's a matter of just letting it run for a little while in each direction just to let all that oil and everything bed in. Also remagnetize the magnet. So I'll leave it to run now. Once it's done, I'll have a look at it, see if I can see any excess oil, and then just use a cotton wool bud just to clean up any excess oil. This is the oiling pen I use. I picked it up at a show years ago. Use it all the time. It's got quite a nice fine needle for applying oil in tiny droplets. I recommend you get one of these. You can pick them up in any hobby store or any show you go to, they should have one. Be careful if you use other different types of oil, because some different types of oil, they could damage the actual plastic. They can react with it. So if you're using any different different types of oil, just try a little bit on the underneath and, you know, on a bit that's not going to be seen on the plastic, and just see if it causes any reaction. But we'll leave that running now. Running in time's up, so we'll just switch her off. Now I could convert this to DCC. I could simply insulate that there, attach the grey and orange directly, solder them directly onto the brushes here, that insulated. And I've got the feed coming up from one of the wheels, and then use that point there after cutting off the capacitor for the feed for the black and red wire for the decoder. So you'd have to hardwire it in. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep this for DC running, because I am running a couple of DC layouts, so I can use it in one of them. So I'll pop the cover back on, put it on the track here, and see if it runs up and down. Hope you enjoyed looking at these 44-year-old Hornby products and bringing back this engine to life. Thanks again to Alan, who gave me this stuff that he found in the attic. So please leave your comments and questions down below. So please like, subscribe and share. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.